there is security in this area, and we're hearing that those 30 Foreign Minister Vijay Herath earlier in Parliament made a statement saying there are approximately 180 crew members on that Iranian Navy frigate. So just going by the math, you're saying 32 accounted for. We're still trying to figure out where the 150 other crew members might be. And that's what we have. So
Sri Lanka Navy spokesperson saying that they are hopeful that more people can be rescued in the waters, and they did not observe any other ship in the area. I mean, what sort of diplomatic fallout is there likely to be from this?
I mean, at this point of time, everyone is taking stock. I mean, the diplomatic fallout and any possible sort of implications would to the possibility that this was just not, a standard sort of an engine trouble type incident, that there is something slightly more serious. At the moment, the Sri Lankan government is playing it safe. They haven't said anything about the potential causes of this accident. All we know is that between 6 and 7 o'clock local time, there was signal that came out from this, sent out boats to try and assist survivors. At this point, sources tell us that there is no evidence that there was even a frigate or a boat of any sort of remnants of the boat. So we are hearing, though, that the search and rescue operations with Air Force craft also pitching in, as well as a number there any more survivors. I did speak to the Iranian ambassador as well as the head of the embassy a short while ago, and both of them actually told me that they have dispatched the military attaché and consular officials here to the hospital to try and see if they can talk to the survivors to get some sense of what exactly went down.
Okay, thank you so much, Manel Fernandez there for us with the very latest out of Gaul. Well, in Lebanon, in just the past, southern Lebanon to move north of the Litani River, suggesting imminent in the south. Well, for the very latest, we're going to Bernard Smith, who's standing by for us in the capital, Beirut. And this mass forced evacuation order in the south really means that there's going to be a marked escalation.
It looks like it, Tom. The Israelis haven't done that before in this conflict or in towards the end of 2024. Ordinarily, you'd get from the Israelis evacuation orders for individual villages or groups. Is to order the evacuation of the whole of that area of southern Lebanon to north of the Litani River hasn't been recently heard of. Already, the Israeli army was estimating before they gave this order that some 100,000 people had evacuated from there. They're coming to Beirut. A lot of the hotels here in Beirut are filling up with people who've evacuated from the south looking for safety. And the Israeli army is already off around to come in. That's where they would feel they're at a more even position versus Israelis doing much of their operation from the air at the moment, Tom.
And hit.
Well, again, it looks like we don't really have a defined front line again this time, pretty much like back in that major conflict back in November. Side of Hezbollah strongholds in southern Lebanon. They hit a hotel in an area called Hazmir in Beirut, only 700 meters or so from the presidential palace. That is not a Hezbollah stronghold area. And this is again a repeat of really what we saw 2024 when Israel launched offensives across Lebanon. That only ended with a ceasefire Hezbollah of not disarming and accusing the Lebanese authorities, the Lebanese government, of not doing enough to disarm Lebanon. So it looks like a repeat of what we saw in 2024, but potentially a much more protracted one now, as Israel tries to go after more Hezbollah positions and more Hezbollah fighters and officials.
Okay, thank you so much for that update, Bernard. Bernard Smith for us in Beirut. Haneen Saeed is the Lebanese Minister of Social Affairs. She says 65,000 people there have registered in emergency shelters so far, but that number is likely to climb.
People are worried. Unfortunately, to say that we've lived through this before, and not too long ago, less than 2 years, Lebanon and the Lebanese uncertainty of waking up daily to sounds of course, either drones or explosions. And we are, as a government, mobilized. All ministries, all government agencies are mobilized. First, of course, at least at the level of my responsibility, food and supplies for the displaced. As a government, we took a decision 2 days ago in an emergency cabinet meeting, which basically said that all military activities of Hezbollah is illegal. It's outside of the and the army is fully deployed. All security forces are fully deployed. And of course, the long-term plan is establishing the authority of the state on all of its territories. Of course, we are also trying all diplomatic efforts. This is a key part of getting stability, getting a country back. Diplomatic path and position of the state, including the army, all across the territories.
Well, as Israel strikes Lebanon, thousands are seeking safety in neighbouring Syria. Closed its border crossing with Lebanon after receiving a warning from Israel that it may target it. It remains open for Syrians fleeing Lebanon. But Ida Hito has more from the border.
On the fourth day of what's on and several other regional people have arrived between over the last 2 days. The influx of refugees continues to grow. There are UN agencies of refugees continues to of disasters and emergency management, ready to provide any kinds of medical services and psychosocial services to these people. Most of the people that we've spoken with have been on the road for a day or two trying to reach the border crossing and actually get into Syrian territory. And officials here say they expect these numbers to continue to grow. Especially as the violence intensifies in Lebanon, but they say they're ready to accept anybody who wants to flee and make it to safety here in Syria. Obaid Hito, Al Jazeera, the Syrian-Lebanese border.
Okay, we're going to take you to Iran now, and these are the latest pictures of a series of airstrikes hitting the capital, Tehran. In 5 days, the US and Israeli attacks have killed nearly 800 people. Homes, hospitals and a UNESCO heritage site have all been damaged in widespread attacks. I'm going to go to Al Jazeera's Mohammed Val, who is there in the capital, Tehran, for us. And can you just talk us through what damage has been done?
comes to us, never comes to the public awareness or some details. We have some details. We have but also at the same time there is the Ministry of War in Hakira, infrastructure in strategic area of Beni Brak, the military targets in Beitek, the military targets in Beitek, the military targets in Beitek, the military targets in Beitekva, northwest of Tel Aviv. The Navy is still active, contrary to the claim by the Americans that it has been decimated. Targets 600 kilometers within the Indian Ocean, so that's a very long distance. Ground forces also say the Revolutionary Guard have launched 3 operations. They fired 230 offensive drones at U.S. Israeli American bases in Erbil, northern Iraq. American bases in Erbil, northern Iraq. Bases in Kuwait, 2 U.S. bases in Kuwait. That's
And Mohammed, the morning of Khamenei starts today. There are obviously preparations underway to select Iran's next supreme leader. Can you just talk us through that process to be filled?
Yeah, I have to start with the latest. That was going to take place today as a farewell to the late supreme leader, and the latest we have is that it has been postponed due to some logistics. That's in the atmospherics of what you have asked about. Ayatollah Mujtaba Husseini is a member of the Assembly of Experts, meted or sent some information about what's happening. He said that there is yet no clarity, that there is not yet a decision about how long this process is going to take. I mean, there is this reassurance for the public that continuity is guaranteed, that the country
Mohammed, it's in the city of Qom. That's the clerical body tasked with appointing the next supreme leader. Well, Israel Katz, the Israeli defense minister, upon X, saying every leader appointed by the Iranian terror regime to continue and lead the plan and the free world and the countries of the region target for elimination. He went on to say it does not matter what his name is or the place where he hides. Well, Noor O'Day joins us now from Ramallah in the occupied West. It joins us now from Ramallah in the occupied West. Noor, can you just talk us through the implications of all this? I mean, from Israel Katz is saying that it doesn't matter.
Israel is framing this war on Iran as the same way it would on a non-state actor, on an armed group in a country. It wants the world to buy into the argument that Iran is equivalent to, they're talking about hunting about considering all of the leadership, about considering all of the leadership understands very well that killing leaders is not going to change the picture, but it maintains that only when a friendly Iran, a pro-Israel Iran, created or the conditions for it are ripe, will Israel let up in the bombardment? There is an expectation that there would be at least 2 more weeks of Israeli bombardment of Iran. That's according to the latest leaks from the Israeli military circles. And in the meantime, those bombings, according to Israeli estimation, will kind of soften the ground, will prepare the way for a popular uprising against the current government in Tehran. At least that is what the Israeli public is being told will happen in the coming weeks.
And Noor, there's obviously, as we've been discussing, a ramping up of military efforts by Israel into Lebanon. The Defence Minister, Israel Katz, once again, has actually authorised Israeli troops to advance deeper into Operation Roaring Lion. Can you just give us an idea, though, of what the military objective here is? Is it to, I guess, is it still to offer a limited buffer zone? Occupation.
Lebanese territory, 25, 30 kilometers deep into Lebanon, clearing it of Lebanese civilians, clearing it of Lebanese civilians. November 2024, November 2024, when Hezbollah was the military control of it over it absolute, and then using it as a so-called buffer zone to create a sense of security for Israel. This is extremely unusual, completely outside the parameters of international law, as experts keep reminding us, but it is how Israel is conducting business in Lebanon, in Syria, even inside Gaza, to create a so-called buffer zone, and so far it doesn't seem like it's willing to withdraw.
Okay, thank you so much for all of that, Noor O'Day, for us in Ramallah. Well, Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait and Saudi Arabia have all been intercepting Iranian drones and missiles. There's been another attempted attack on its Ras Tanura oil refinery. On Monday, a drone Ras Tanura is one of the world's largest oil. With the latest, who has been intercepting what from where?
UAE says it intercepted 3 ballistic missiles and 121 drones. That's according to their defense ministry. In Kuwait, the General Staff of the Army announced that the armed forces were dealing with a wave of missiles and drones that had been detected in the airspace headed towards the state of Kuwait. Kuwait, of course,
to be injured by retaliatory strikes by Iran was a Filipino worker in Kuwait's international airport and one of the first who was assisting her ward to a bomb shelter when a shrapnel hit her. Now her family has requested that her remains be brought back home, but officials here say that may not be possible for a while.
In due time, OFW Mary Ann will be home safely. But in the meantime, Admin PY and myself sent our teams already over Pangasinan and for the family. And then our teams naman also process.
In fact, no home, while also assuring the nearly 2.5 million Filipinos in the Middle East that there are teams on the ground.
Assessment is that it would be too dangerous to charter flights. There are suggestions to evacuate by land, but that could also be risky.
It's not just It's not just workers. Many from South and Southeast Asia. And so, for instance, Pakistan, Thailand, Asia have urged their citizens to shelter in place. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has directed all departments to assist Indian nationals. Vietnam and Nepal have suspended the deployment of workers, and here in the Philippines, the deployment ban remains in place. Barnabelow, Al Jazeera, Manila.
In Iraq, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps says it's launched a series of drone attacks targeting a US military base in Erbil. The IRGC says it was part of what it described as 3 simultaneous operations, including strikes on 2 US military bases in Kuwait. Also in Iraq, there's been an attack on the headquarters of the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan at their camp. Iran has designated Kurdish opposition groups as terrorist organizations. Rissel Serda joins us now, obviously reported extensively from Iran. Thanks for being back with us, Rissel. Can you just first of all explain for people that might not know that region? Involved there. What does this mean? What are the consequences right now?
Look, for now, for the first time here in that IRGCs, where there are Kurdish militants over there. And it has been almost like decades that these Kurdish groups, from time to time, they have been clashing, have been in conflict with the Iranian army and Revolutionary Guards. So why now, that particularly while the country is being that much intensively bombed, why does the IRGC need to conduct an operation at that border? Because the risk assessment in Tehran is that eventually Israel will try to destabilize Iran's borders and then encourage the ethnic insurgencies. I mean, the insurgency through the ethnic minorities in Iran. And so the most volatile region in that equation is the borders, and then encourage the ethnic insurgencies. I mean, the insurgency through the ethnic minorities in Iran. And so the most volatile region in that equation is the insurgency through the ethnic minorities in Iran. And so the most volatile region in that equation is the Kurdish area in the western part of the country. And if IRGC does not stop it here, does not prevent it here, then these kind of insurgencies later could spread into the Baluch region in the east of the country, and then the Arabs, and then eventually Azeris. So Iran is such a diversified country, have their own desires of having their have their own desires of having their own. IRGC believes if this insurgency is not suppressed now, then later it's going to be extremely difficult to control it. And if it's not controlled, definitely that will mean a prolonged civil war.
And if we can just talk a little bit about the power vacuum in Iran at the moment, obviously, since the killing of the supreme leader, working towards electing someone to take over, they can't even at this point, from what we heard from Mohammed in the capital, Tehran, a little earlier, they can't even really mourn his death at this point in time because of the security threat. What do you make of that? And how quickly do they need to make a decision here to ensure some sort of stability, some sort of leadership going forward?
They have to be extremely quick because Ali Khamenei was the builder of the modern day Iran, on the contrary of the common understanding that people believe it. I will say not that much, to be honest. He was a charismatic, popular leader, but 10 years of his rule, so 8 years in the 10 years were just a war with Iraq, but it was Ali Khamenei who built Iran inch by inch. Any institution that you can imagine today, particularly security apparatuses and key figures that are running Iran, have been appointed or shaped or formed by him. So now he's not there, and the country is in an existential war, and defense industry is now working against Iran. So it's an existential threat for Iran. And while that is happening, so their leader is assassinated, their commanders are assassinated, and it was not just one-time heat. So Americans and Israelis are keeping killing the military and the political elites on daily basis. So while all that is happening, who is in command of the country while the country is facing the tremendous challenges? So now there are three power bases. First is a temporary leadership, and that temporary leadership is now apparently in charge. But there are also two politicians, the Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council, Ali Larijani, and then Mohammad Ghalibaf, the spokesperson of the parliament. These are representing the political the gravity of the power, and IRGC. However, at the end of the day, whoever is going to be elected at the power center, at the end of the day, their power is measured by the IRGC. IRGC is going to decide the next supreme leader, and practically IRGC is now in charge of running the state affairs.
Rissel, as always, thank you so much for talking us through all of that. We really do appreciate it. Rissel Serta for us. Well, in Washington, senior Trump officials have briefed Congress behind closed doors for a second day, justifying the attacks on Iran. But not everyone is convinced. Democrats want a vote on a war powers resolution. They accuse the president of breaching the Constitution by authorizing attacks on Iran without congressional approval. Patty Culhane reports from Washington.
Leaving a classified briefing by Trump administration officials, one Democratic senator made the startling statement. He thinks this could become a ground war in Iran.
I just want to say I am more fearful than ever after this briefing that we may be putting boots on the ground, and that troops from the United States may be necessary to accomplish objectives that Iran seems to have.
That is something the administration has not ruled out, but also admitted they are not positioned to do that right now. When it comes to the reason for the strikes, the Trump administration moved to clarify what U.S. State Marco Rubio had said just 24 hours before, that Israel was going to strike first with or without the United States, so they felt they had to act. I put that question to Republican senators. Are you concerned when Secretary of State Rubio says that the U.S. was going to attack Iran because Israel was going to first?
No, look, we coordinated very closely with Israel, and the whole point was to attack Iran when they were weakest.
But for Republican Senator Mike Round, their new explanation.
There's a whole series of reasons why this was the opportune time to do it, in part because of the manufacturing processes that were going on within Iran, in which they were going to be shortly in a position to overcome our capability to defend against them with the weapon systems that we have available to us.
In the coming days, the Congress is expected to vote on a bill that would order the president to stop all attacks on Iran. Okay, is the War Powers bill going to pass? And if it's not, what's
vote is taken? I think it'll be a close vote, but if nothing else, I think every American deserves to know where their representatives stand on this issue.
a potentially pivotal vote for lawmakers, knowing that come November, many of them will face voters who will have the final say if they agree with where they stand right now. Patty Culhane, Al Jazeera, Capitol Hill.
Well, if you're just joining us, here's a quick rundown of the latest Israel-Iran war. Israel has issued new evacuation orders for Lebanon in its rapidly escalating conflict with Hezbollah. Over the past couple of hours, Israel has struck multiple areas in Beirut's southern suburbs. It says a Hezbollah infrastructure. But a hotel near the capital and a residential complex in the east have also been hit. Iran has launched multiple strikes on Israel, including in the Tel Aviv area. Its defense minister says whoever is picked to be Iran's next supreme leader will be, quote, a target for elimination. Since Saturday, US and Israeli attacks have killed more than 800 people in Iran. And Iran has targeted as attack targets in the Gulf. Saudi Arabia's defense ministry spokesman says there's been another attempted attack on its Ras Tanura oil refinery. It's one of several energy facilities that Iran has targeted in just the past few days. Well, US President Donald Trump has said he expects the operation in Iran to be over in a matter of weeks. But the history of American intervention in foreign lands suggests those operations often fail to meet their policy goals. John Hendren reports from Washington.
The American bomb